We're talking about sow bugs today. This sow bug that I'm going to tie is awesome. I don't even know what else to say about it, but you got to see that how I make the back for this, and also we're going to show you how to blend your own sow bug dubbing.
That's a big brown roll.
Okay, we're back, and guess what? We have power. Boom, boom. All right, so this is a real cheap coffee grinder. There's nothing special about it. Now, it has these little blades in here. Now, what you got to keep in mind is these blades are pretty blunt. It's not really going to chop up any dubbing that you put in this. So if you're going to use a coffee grinder for dubbing, it needs to be dubbing that's very short, okay? So if you put in like long, say, bruiser blend type stuff, this will catch on fire. So I don't know how I know that, but I've once heard of a guy, 6'5", 300 pounds from Vernal, Utah, excellent fly caster and fisherman, who burnt one up. So I'm learning from his mistakes, and we're not going to burn this one up. All right, so the base of this dubbing is going to just be plain old rabbit dub, Adam's gray hairline dubbing. This stuff is the original gangster. This is great dubbing to play with. So we're going to take this off. And it won't turn on, see, because I can't get to the button here unless the cap's on. All right, so first thing for this fly, I want it to be kind of a gray base. So I'm going to take a healthy pinch like that, and in it goes. Dude, this is like cooking. I'm like a pirate cooking in a black cauldron. Goodness gracious. My day keeps getting better and better. All right, now with this STS trilobal stuff, you just can't go all willy-nilly and just pile a bunch of it in on top here. So I want a hint of red in this dubbing, and that might be a little much. We can always add more if we need to. Now the problem with the STS trilobal is it's too long just to put in as is. So I'm going to take my dubbing clump and I'm going to preen that with my fingers until it's all roughly facing the same direction. Okay, and now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut it about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch long. Just like that. So I'll do that with some red. Now let's pull out our burnt orange. About an equal amount here. Gotta have a little more of that orange in here. Dude, did you realize that Sunkist has caffeine? All I know is I go out to my fridge in my garage, and that's like the only drink we have left, and I pound a bunch of them about midnight. It sucked. So I freaking hate Sunkist now. Anyway, back to the burnt orange. We're just going to cut that same length roughly. And you'd be surprised at how accurately that will trim your dubbing up. And then we're going to add a tan element to this. And so I want tan to be more of a primary color. It's also going to add a lot of sheen to this dubbing. So we'll put in a little more tan than the other colors. And the other thing about this is on a sow bug specifically, you're picking out fibers that hang out the side of the fly. If you use all natural fibers, sometimes they're not going to poke out like that quite as well. So if you have synthetic fibers mixed with natural, like the rabbit here, you can have some really cool effect. So you have the fibers that poke out and you have the fibers that are softer that move a lot. So it's a really cool combo. Same thing with the tan. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is when I put this on here, I'm not going to romp on it. Okay, so I'm going to point it to you like this. I'm trying to get the reflection of light out of the way. And when I pulse it, I just let it go, let it do its thing. And about 3-4 pulses, I can see what I want to do to it. So if I open that up, look how cool that is. To me, it has a little bit more red than I want. So what I'm going to do, just leave that all in there. And we're going to just add a little more gray to it. So just like that. Lid goes back on. I think we're getting real close here. And by not mashing down on the button, you're just kind of allowing it to mix and not chop anything up. So here's what we end up looking like. Ooh, Spence, I want to make a deal with you. Don't touch my freaking dummy. All right? You good? All right. So this is what we end up with. You want to zoom in real quick here? Can you, Spence, on this one? Oh, this is looking good. Okay. Look at that. Oh, we got to keep it back here. All right. So as you can see, the dubbing's nice and fluffy. You're going to see it while we tie the fly with this. But a real cool way that you can make your own Sowbug dubbing. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make this scud back that I've been using. I use it on the garbage scud fly that we have in our tutorials, and I'm going to use it on a Sowbug now. Now this takes a normal plastic bag. Well, it has to be a special plastic bag, and it makes it more durable. So I have these here. These are some of the newer bags from Hairline. This is some dubbing that we just made for our sow dub, but it's a crispier, shinier plastic. I don't know how else to say it. This is the standard Ziploc bag. If you try to do that same technique with a bag like this, it's just going to pull apart and it won't work. So it's got to be kind of this crispier plastic. Someone please correct me. I don't know the difference between the two plastics, and it would be easier for me just to say, get this stuff. Anyway, so what I've done, you can see that I've given this a lot of work, and I just pulled one strip out of this. So it doesn't even have to be super perfect as far as the width of it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the plastic that's hanging out right here, and I'm going to pull that until it starts to separate. There's a little separation started here, and now I can take my finger, pinch that, and with my other hand I'm going to pull it out and stop. So I'm going to pull it out, stop, pull it out, stop, pull it out, stop, pull it out, stop, just in little micro increments. So let's see, if I just kind of wiggle my hand as I do it, you can see as it comes out of my, well, it's going up too. So as you can see it coming out of these fingers, it's going to kind of make those little stripes or striations. If you're doing a bigger fly and you want them further apart, just make longer pulls. That didn't turn out very good. I like to just kind of keep it small. That's going to be good for, a size 14 through 16 Sowbug or scud. But anyway, that tiny little piece of plastic can make just a really giant piece of that scud back, and it looks really, really cool. It kind of maintains that silver milky appearance. But out of one bag, you could tie hundreds and hundreds of these Sowbugs. But anyway, that is what we're going to use for the shellback on these Sowbugs. All right, for this fly, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to use my favorite pair of scissors right now, which is the Renomed fly tire. I'm going to use an old school Mattarelli bobbin that my friend Swenny gave me. And then I'm using one of these new Tiemco ceramic bobbins. I don't even know what the name of it is, but we'll put descriptions in this video for you. Anyway, and then at the very end, I'm going to use this metal brush to pick the fly out. And then I think that's it. Other than that, I'm just going to use a little bit of Solarez Bone Dry and the Loon. I don't even know what that one's called. It's called the mega freaking powerful UV light. Okay, so there is another version of this fly that has some weight to it. It's a jig nymph, but this one's going to be weightless. I mean, you can morph this fly a whole bunch of different ways, but you can use brown or black thread. I just kind of like this wine thread. Sometimes I'll use red or burnt orange. But This is going to be a real simple fly. It's just going to be dubbing, a shellback, and some rib. So the ribbing that I'm going to use is a Semperfli Nano Silk in 18-aught. And it doesn't really matter what color you choose. This one's an olive. So what I'm going to do is I'll just tie this in on top of the fly in the bobbin, and I'll pull this kind of to length about like that. And then rest my bobbin somewhere on my vise, and then pull this little tag end over and cover that up. That's critical when you start wrapping this fly or you doing the rib. You're using a little bit of tension, and that stuff is so slick that it will just pull right out of there. All right, now the shellback that we just showed you how to make from our Ziploc bag is what we work with next. So I'm just going to cut a little corner on this, and I'll tie that in right at the top or the head of the fly, and as I come back, that stuff will just kind of wrap itself around the hook shank as I wrap my thread back. I'll wrap it pretty far back, almost to where it starts to go down the bend. All right, so I'm going to just reinforce that a little bit, build up a little bit of bulk. And now the dubbing that we just made right here, we don't need a dubbing loop or anything. I'm just going to dub this in kind of coarse, but I also want it to be tight enough to create kind of a core of dubbing so it doesn't all just fall out. So I don't know, just like a big fat dubbing noodle about like that. This is not the glamorous part of this fly, but things need to be done for sow bugs. So I'm just going to wrap that dubbing. You can see it was very sloppily dubbed on there, but that's all right. We want it to pick out to a certain degree, so I'll add a little bit more. All right, so we'll just go up to the head like that. So we have a pretty messy fly right now, which is perfect. So now I'm going to take this material, and it kind of wants to fold in the back. So if you just move it back and forth, it will unfold itself. And now I'm just going to pull that over the eye, and then when you tie it off, it will look just like that. So that alone looks really, really cool, but wait till we get in there with some nano silk. So before I cut this or trim it off, I'm going to fold this back and wrap up it a little bit. And at this point, I need to come in really, really tight with my scissors and trim this shell back off. I'll just take my thread and cover up that little tag to a certain degree. And now I'm going to whip finish my primary thread color off of this fly. All right, so now we pull out the old nano silk that's been hanging out behind the fly for so long. And I'm just going to come in here, and you don't need to follow the lines on the plastic bag that we made. They just kind of help it give a little bit of, bugginess, we'll say. But if you can see how much tension I put on there, when you stretch the plastic bag, it actually adds a little bit of durability for whatever reason. But as you can see, that's a nice bumpy back on the Sowbug. And then this thread, this 18-aught nano silk, even though it's olive, if I just whip finish that over the top of my claret thread, it won't even show up. All right, so thread's gone. Now we pull out our fancy dubbing picker tool. This one's my favorite one for tight spots and small flies because the bristles really aren't that gnarly. So we're just going to come in here and pick out a bunch of dubbing from the bottom of the fly. This is why I like to build it with a little bit of synthetic and a little bit of natural, so that the synthetic will poke out and kind of hold the structure of the fly, And then the natural stuff just kind of flows in between the synthetics. So let's see if I can show you what I'm talking about here. And the other thing is, because we trimmed our dubbing to the proper size when we were blending it, there's no waste. So as you can see, those work out great like that. Now, if you want it to be a little more buggy, you could come in after the trim and, you know, pull out a few more fibers on either side of it. Now, it is more durable than a plastic bag, but it's still just a plastic bag. So then the final step is just get a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of resin and just kind of get the back wet with the resin, and even tap it with your finger, because you don't want it to create a shell back that will take away those ridges on the fly. So once we have it right there, hit it with a light, and you are ready to fish your garbage sows.